Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Entry Point.
Good morning. Sir Paul McCartney was not always the distinguished knighted UK, born and bred young man that we kind of know today. At the time he was visited by his mother in the dream, he was partying, he was enjoying the success of the band, drinking a little too much, and basically lacking the foundation for a long-term, satisfying life. He was wandering, he was lost. How would he find his way out of his personal desert and into a promised land and life that offered meaning and purpose? His mother came to him and reassured him, I guess like God reassured Moses, that he could find his way out of the desert if he was willing to be open, to be vulnerable, and to consider relationships that brought him love and true acceptance rather than short-term thrills. His mom whispered in the dream, "Let it be. You've got this. We've got this. It'll be okay." He found Linda and love. Their marriage, from all indications, was a beautiful relationship. I love the story. Perhaps you, like me, always thought the song was about Mother Mary, capital M, Mother Mary. No, it was about his mother, and it makes it, I think, all the more special. There's Paul and Linda and the kids. In letting it be, as his mom suggested, he made himself vulnerable. He allowed himself to be vulnerable. He found the courage to open himself to love, to take the risk of committing himself to another, building a family and a very, very full life. By the way, you can see Sir Paul McCartney in Fort Wayne on June 3rd, coming right up. He's performing some small venues in the Midwest, continues to perform at age 76, and I'm guessing he's going to be performing like Tony Bennett and many others into his 80s. So that's our theme for today. How do we find courage to make ourselves vulnerable? How do we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in order to create opportunities to display that courage? In doing some reading and some thinking, I'm quite sure that those two terms, vulnerability and courage, are not opposites, but are actually two sides of the same coin. Vulnerability, the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. That doesn't sound very appealing. But as Brene Brown comments, and we'll talk a little more about her later, it's that other side of the coin of courage that we need to make sure that we explore. It extends a bit on the message that Nancy shared with us last week about finishing the race, about allowing ourselves to have the courage to keep pushing on even when there are challenges. Let's take a look at a video clip from the movie Birdman, which a lot of you may not have seen. It's a very powerful film kind of with handheld camera through, but Michael Keaton plays a kind of washed up old actor who's desperate to find meaning in his life and in his work. He played superhero characters, and he's trying to bring back the magic of that work to the stage at an older point in his life. And he's also trying to earn the respect of his daughter. Well, the scene is so powerful to me. I may not be, or we may not be, Michael Keaton trying to regain our superhero powers and relevance. By the way, I can never fly. I don't know about some of you, maybe. But aren't we all striving to remain relevant, to be engaged, to be of value? It's not always easy in a busy, high-tech world. Yeah, Facebook. I must have missed that. I can't fly, nor will I ever be able to, but I do believe that unless I allow myself to be vulnerable, to continue to try new things, to suck it up and to use that courage to say things and do things that bring either painful results and many failures or loving consequences, that without taking those prudent risks, I simply will never know what I can continue to accomplish. So for each of us, will we drift? Will we just hunker down and kind of check out while living? No, thank you. Exploring courage and vulnerability is something that I think helps us give a foundation to take those steps. What do we mean by courage? The definition is up there. The ability to do something that frightens one. Kind of interesting amazing in and of itself. The ability to do something that frightens us, scares us a bit. It originates from Middle English, denoting the heart as the seat of feelings, and from Old French, courage, or from Latin cor, meaning the heart. I learned to find courage a bit as a kid, as I assume all of us did, in our very own unique ways growing up. What was notable for me were my parents and the manner in which they helped me keep going despite the setbacks, and to find the courage to seek engagement, to try new things, to find joy in ordinary things. So Iowa was home for me, as many of you know, and Iowa was laid out like that. Even more than, probably more than almost any other state. It's just square miles. And so in the middle of that, in Buena Vista County, Grant Township, was our little farm. Directions were always clear. You know, if you wanted to go to the Seavers farm, you went 2 miles west and a mile north. You could almost never get lost. But then they had these tricky little things called correction lines, places in the road where the road just jogged just a bit, so everything remained lined up. After all, we're laying out straight lines on a ball. It's called the earth, so they make those little correction jogs. We had 3 country churches just north of where I live. Within 4 miles of each other, we had a Lutheran church called the North Church, a congregational church, my church, which was called the Middle Church, and the West Church, which was the really, really Lutheran church. And they were kind of special. That's the men's group that wouldn't go bowling with my dad's men's group. He was very upset at that. So my early life was pretty low key. A farm 7 miles from a small town of 700. My older, somewhat evil sister, 3 years older, and my parents. I do have a picture of her undressed. She has to be dressed up. You know, she plays with me, right? I was an object for her to dress and kind of put on her skits. And she did push me out of a tree, which I never forgive her for either. But we also had some terrific neighbor boys. And so, ranging in age from about 6 years older than I to a couple years younger. So that was my social life, along with my rat terrier, Sparky. And just as a note, my sister has turned into a really wonderful human being. So we get along very nice. Of course, the older boys taught the younger boys about how to explore all sorts of things around the farms. We walked the roads, we explored the ditches, we tried to ride the medium-sized pigs. Ever been in a hay mow in the farm where the wagons go through? Well, if you put hogs or sheep in there for a part of the year, then you have ropes above them, so you can actually jump off the side, swing on the rope, and land on a pig. The pigs love it. And we hunted anything that moved with BB guns. Now, with BB guns, we very seldom killed anything, but we enjoyed the thrill of pretending that we were serious hunters. Building young male courage was part of our DNA, and it's part of a rite of passage. Another rite of passage related to electric fences. Now you get, how many of you have been around electric fences? So you know that you got the little transformer and then bzzz, and then go, and you can adjust the power of the electric fence, etc. And when it's wet out, like it is now, they were kind of extra powerful. So, knowing that they worked and knowing that there was electric shock that flows on and off was very handy for keeping animals in the pen. So one of the most amusing things to watch was young pigs testing the wire. That happens to be a cobbler. But so if there was a pig that was testing the wire, they test it with their wet nose. Well, they got a pretty good shock. So you'd have these little pigs who were looking at the electric wire, knowing that it was going to shock them, but there was a cornfield on the other side. So tempting that they could not resist. They would endure the shock to get to the wonderful buffet of corn. One pig in particular was a hoot. She would get a running start, heading toward the fence, head down, tail up, and she would start to squeal before she hit the fence. She knew she was going to get shocked, but also knowing that there was going to be a reward in the cornfield that was worth it. She was willing to be vulnerable, to take the pain, know the pain was coming, but with that courage, I guess, and squealing, she could find her reward and become something like that, happy pig. The human version of the electric fence story is a challenge the older boys took on with great delight. It's no secret that farm boys, bear with me now, don't be offended, will urinate or will pee wherever and whenever on the farm that it seems appropriate, outdoors, right? So you combine the idea of, as young kids, who can pee the farthest with the idea of the electric fence. It's not a pretty picture, but the older boys love to dupe the younger boys into doing exactly that. Because I got older on the farm, I was my dad's #1 assistant and helper. He taught me how to milk cows, slop hogs, drive a tractor. This was real work and it was important to our family business. I really didn't realize until I was in my 20s that the farm was a business. It wasn't just hard work. He and I were vulnerable on a daily basis, not just for safety reasons. Farming was and is one of the most hazardous professions in the country, but for reasons of pride. Who had planted the straightest corn rows? Which fields looked the most productive and had the fewest weeds? All the neighbors saw the results of your work in the fields every day. It was pretty confining. You were getting a job performance review literally day by day, week by week. And in that community, everyone knew everyone else's business. They knew what was going on. So I was kind of happy to leave, for that reason. When I was about 16 and had come home from school late one evening, it was harvest season and Dad and I were unloading corn and it was dark. And I don't remember getting much homework done that night, but I do remember that we were unloading corn and I made a huge mistake. Dad asked me to make sure that the back of the wagon was closed and secured, so nothing spilled out. I was going to move the wagon ahead. I was tired. I simply misunderstood. I misheard, and I opened it up instead of securing it. Dozens of bushels of corn spilled on the corn crib floor, and I was nearly in tears. Remember, 16-year-old boys don't cry. But there was no criticism. Dad knew I was tired, that I had misheard. He simply said, "It's okay." He grabbed a shovel, handed me a shovel, and we cleaned up my mess, my mistake, together. In essence, he said, "We've got this, it's okay." And at a deeper level, he taught me that it was okay to make mistakes, to learn from them, to feel embarrassed and vulnerable, to move on and take the next logical step. I'm forever grateful. How do we move forward in a way that we build the foundation for courage? Renee's clips are very good, by the way. If you go online or to YouTube, you'll find a TED Talk. Actually, you find some longer pieces as well, and I find them very, very inspiring and hook you with some of the ideas that she presents. Her research has been largely about shame, and now by moving to vulnerability and courage, she proposes that those two terms are not opposites, which we talked about earlier. They're two sides of the same coin. Vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage, according to Renee. We don't run away from letting ourselves be vulnerable in order to be tough and courageous. Rather, we must open ourselves to being vulnerable in order to find the courage to take risks. Now, it strikes me, in the second quote, being vulnerable means to show up, to be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about how you feel, to have the hard conversations, especially tough for men. It strikes me that artists are examples of those who are willing to expose their work to others, to be vulnerable. From the depths of their ideas and their feelings, their emotions, they create works that represent who they are, their hopes and their dreams. Now, I'm not an artist, to say the least, but I hasten to add that performing in band is, and sometimes you have similar feelings every week because we put ourselves out there. Great God. But I'm blessed to know a couple of gifted artists, painters, that are in our community. Two are with us at Entry Point, Mary Ann Glick and Laura Lee Andrews. They bless us with their work. Both paint from their feelings and take the risk of sharing their ideas through color, through texture, through form with others. Our friend also, there's Laura Lee with him. Laura Lee, as you know, is very much into trees, so a lot of her work includes trees. Second picture by Laura Lee. And we have a very good friend in Arizona who paints, and she does what they call plein air. So she escapes from the four walls of the studio and paints outdoors. So every week, about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, she heads out with a small group in the bed, and they paint in the morning light. They have the courage also, though, to share their work in public, to put it out there, and to welcome the oohs and the ahs and wow, that's nice, or the ew, what's that supposed to be? I'm always amazed at their talent and their willingness to share with us, and I'm amazed that all three go headlong into painting even more actively in their quotes middle age. They become very productive in their 50s and in their 60s, their 6 decades of life. Thank you to the band, Andrew, Concho, Nico. Surgery. You should be back next week or the following week. Doing well, but great to have you with us. Let me give a shout out also to Sue. I don't know if you realize there's like 86 slides today, and they each take creativity. She's just a delight to work with. So thank you to everybody in the community who provides support for the services. I'm always amazed. So my word for the month of May is cattywampling. Cattywampling, to travel in a purposeful manner toward a vague destination. You ever do that? You're heading for something. I do it, and then I just, where was I going and why? So sometimes you can just kind of fake it, right? So I have a good friend at the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, Beth Allen. She brings the idea of cattywampling to life in her story about being in elementary school. She was painfully shy, 8 to 9-year-old, a new girl, moved into the school and became a friend. This girl was similarly shy as Beth. They decided that they wanted to have more friends, to become more popular, more noticed, and more involved. They had to find a way to allow themselves to approach others and be more outgoing. So they decided to fake it. They decided to pretend that they were outgoing and chatty. They forced themselves to act in a way and take the risk of being a complete fool or being rejected. Amazingly, it worked. They found that by allowing themselves to act, to try new behaviors, to risk interacting and be vulnerable, they were successful in expanding their social network and enjoying school. It worked for them. It worked for us as well. Don't overly protect yourself from taking risks and trying new things. Allow yourselves to be vulnerable, to find courage, to catty-wample toward your destination. However vague or specific it may be, however scary or comfortable it may seem. Thanks for being with us today. I'd like to share a quote that is kind of my daily prayer. Life is short. There's not much time for us to gladden the hearts of those who travel away with us. So be quick to love and make haste to be kind. So thank you for being with us today. Next week, Nancy's going to kick bitterness to the curb. Thank you. Go in peace.